Yes.
Welcome to everyone, and thank you very much for being here with us today. We are in our first workshop about accessibility and inclusive higher education, more generally speaking. The title of today's presentation, as you can see, is Digital Inclusion Possible, Hints and Tricks for Creating Accessible Digital Contents. But before we start, I would just like to say a few words. I am Benedetta Zatti. I'm the chair of Action Line 2, Widening Access, Inclusion and Diversity within the Arqus Alliance. And as maybe some of you know, but not all of you know, at the core of the Arqus Alliance, we have attracting people from underrepresented groups, inclusion, diversity, and of course, accessibility, since inclusion is not possible without accessibility. So realizing that not everywhere, not in every context, we have the tools, we have the know-how, we have the knowledge to create accessible contents. And we are actually in the process within the Arqus Alliance, the funding period, to produce loads of contents, which in the end will be uploaded in the Arqus portal and made available not only within the Arqus Alliance, but for the future European universities. We have realized that it would be very important to start spreading knowledge about the topic, which is a very complex one and that requires patience, time. But the important thing is anyway to start and to have a focus on that. So let me introduce Professor Ombretta Gaggi. She's a computer scientist, professor of web technologies and accessibility at Padua University, Department of Mathematics. She has also been teaching in the general course Human Rights and Inclusion, which is a transversal course for all our students at Padua University. She has been awarded with the Teaching for Learning badge, which is given to those researchers, lecturers, teachers who, through attending a faculty community training, develop skills, specific skills to promote teaching innovation in higher education. And lately, with Professor Alessandra Buratto, who's a lecturer in mathematics, collaborated to the development of the new Italian version of a software called NVDA, which maybe some of you know, a screen reader for people with visual impairment. And they, through this development, have made it possible for symbols and mathematical operators to be usable also for those who cannot see. Of course, this is a very important accomplishment because even though the software was available in Italian, the interpretation of the mathematical symbols was actually largely missing still. And this prevented the use of the software, the screen reader, for the study of STEM disciplines. Since in Action Line 2, we have an activity called Women to STEM, for example, and we're very aware of how strong the impact of inaccessible environments can be for many people with different backgrounds. This is why, again, we think having Ombretta Gaggi today to start this number of workshops is so important. So please, Ombretta, thank you so much, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Benedetta, for this wonderful presentation. I'm very happy to be here today because I think what I discovered during my research is that the biggest problem about accessibility is the lack of culture. It's not a technical problem, so there are a lot of technical solutions and there are also a lot of work to do about this, but many cases the solutions are very simple. And the problem is that people do not know what they have to do, how they have to apply this technology. So I think that this talk is very important, and also initiative like this is very important because we need to try to change our mind to understand what the people with disability need, because sometimes we do not know what people with disability need. So to start, I send you in the chat a link. It is also the one that you can find here. So if you want, you can use the QR code. And I ask you to, all of you, to take a few minutes to answer to a couple of questions. I need to know, don't close the browser at the end, because we will use again this tool. I simply ask you, what do you think that accessibility means, and usually what kind of content do you usually produce? You are in charge to produce. Thank you. Okay, I see that someone is beginning to answer the question. Thank you. Now that we have some questions, we can also show the result, because if I show the result before, then answers tend to be the same for everyone. Okay, so I'm very happy today because usually I ask what does accessibility mean, and the answer that I have is accessibility is something, is a rule for people with disability. Instead, today I say the biggest word in the cloud is everyone. This is really important because this means that people that are here tomorrow know something about accessibility, have some idea, and this idea are correct. That it's a good thing because it's not always so. Okay. So maybe this talk is not, you do not need this talk, but I hope you can show you something interesting anyway. Okay, in the publicity of this talk, you receive also two pictures, that's what this one, and to try to capture your attention, we ask you what is the difference between these two pictures. Okay, and so the difference is that I think that everyone does think that this is a ramp, and also this is a ramp. It is a very ugly ramp, and the major difference between these two ramps. Okay, sorry, but there is it's not a problem. Only one. I'm reading the chat. It's not a problem to have some idea about, but it's not important that every one of you answer the question. Okay, just think about it. Okay, also the next one that will come in the rest of the talk. Okay, so this is a very ugly button ramp, and the point is that probably this ramp was built and was designed together with the building. In this case, the ramp was attached to the building in second moments when they realized that they have to fulfill rules about accessibility. I will use an example from the building and other architectural issue, because when we think about accessibility, if I ask you to close your eyes and think about accessibility, probably what you think about is people in wheelchair, because this is what usually happens. While accessibility is involve a very different kind of user, and then we will see what kind of user. What is turning back to our two pictures. The difference between this one is that I have, as I have already said, this one was designed together with the building, and this one was not designed with the building. And so what we use today is universal design. When you design a building, document, website, whatever you want, not only for people that you that do not have any kind of disability, but for everyone. And this ramp is an example of this difficulty. If you think about accessibility at the very beginning of your process, whatever you are designing, probably you can find the optimal solution without so many spending too much money or time. If you and having also good result. If you think accessibility at the end of your process, maybe what you are attaining is something like that. Okay. Okay, but the point is, are we able, so we have to think in a universal way, thinking to all kinds of users, but are we really able to think in a universal way? Okay, now we will try to see if we are able or not. Okay, now I will ask you, the same, to try to describe this picture. Okay, so we are helping a person with a visually impaired person. So we can think about a user. We can say that it is a young boy. He wants to book an hotel for his holiday. Okay, and he entered in a website to book a room, and the description of the room actually plenty of images. And so people that have to create this website have also to give an alternative description, so a description for this picture, because a blind user cannot see images. So I ask you to try to describe this picture for a blind user. The link is the same, and you should have received okay. So a big building with rooms with big windows and terrace and a big blue swimming pool. Perfect. Backstreet hotel with swimming pool. Perfect. A lot of service. Sorry. A lot of service swimming pool included. Okay. Many floors in this hotel. There are a huge swimming pool, however, without barriers around. Perfect. Okay, I think it's enough for us. So what is important, this picture is the service provided. So in particular, the swimming pool, and we cannot see stairs, upstairs here. So maybe we can assume that there are no architectural barriers, and it's important. Okay. Now I changed the room. Okay, this is another hotel with another room. And I ask you to try to describe this room. Everything was okay so far. Now I try to give you a more complicated exercise. Before there was a building and now a room of the hotel. Wide room, potential obstacle, beware. Carpet, potential obstacle, beware. Perfect. Large room with a bed in the center of the room. Room with modern decor, large double bed. Window with sofa, desk, wooden floor, and with a rack. Okay. What is important in this room, as some of you highlighted, I don't find someone say there is a carpet. And this is very important because usually people with the that are blind use a stick to wander, and so it's important for them to know that it's a carpet, because maybe they will ask moving it because this is a potential obstacle. Okay, so very good. Okay, next one. This is another kind of room. We do not have carpet here, but we have other important things to highlight. Consider that also the answer you are giving me are completely different from the answer that you will give me if I ask to try to describe the room for people that are not blind, because maybe you will describe me, for example, the color, that are information that are not important for people with visual impairment, or I don't know, if there is wood on the floor, something like that. Okay, so the point is that we have to change our mind and to try to understand what need people with disability, in this particular case, user. Okay, we have some answers, so you can see a wide room with bands, loft room, low ceiling toward the wall, and wooden floor. Okay, wide room with band roof, watch your head. Perfect. You can see a bedroom with a large bed, many chairs. The room has a special ceiling, construction. I'm sorry, but but it's very interesting, because what is happening to me is that I'm suffering of dyslexia in this moment, or very similar thing, because I will show you in the rest of this talk with a special tool that how to simulate the experience of this with disability, that when you suffer of dyslexia, the letter of the word change their position. You are not able to see them you can see, but they are moving, and so you have to be very concentrated to able to read the word. It's something that is happening to me because I'm trying to read the one of your answer, and the answer is moving on the interface, so it's very similar. Okay, this bedroom with there is a bedroom with 4 chairs on the side, and a table with 3 chairs is in the middle of the room. Is a big, maybe the room under the roof. In front of the bed, there's a possibility to put your furniture, and there are 2, maybe this answer is captured, many furniture around, including chair and table. This is important. It's important to highlight that there are a lot of chairs, because they can be a call. And another point which is very important is the slanted ceiling. So the sloping ceiling, the ceiling that is changed the height of the room in some position. Okay, so if the user is in his bed and then he stand up immediately, he or she can hurt, we say that it's a voice, okay, can hurt his head. So this is very important. Okay, perfect. And the last one. Okay, this one. It's a very beautiful room. In this case, it is a very particular room because if I have to divide this room to people that can see, maybe the first thing I will say to him is that there is a beautiful panorama, but the beautiful panorama is not interesting for people that are blind. Okay, no for need to put on your things. Wide room with obstacle, perfect. Okay, you can see a luxurious bedroom with the bed on the right side. Bed on the right side, there is a large window through which you can see. Okay. Okay. What is important is it's important to say that there is a very big window because blind people. Not all blind people are completely in the dark, but sometimes they can see something, but this not, we cannot measure what they can see because it's too low. Okay, so they can see a letter, they cannot read anything, but they can see, for example, the light and the shadow. So it's important that there is a very big window, because if there are a lot of light, some people that are totally visually impaired can see if there is an obstacle because they recognize the shadow, okay, or if there is something moving, so if someone is entering to the room and so on. But none of you cite the panorama because it's not important for people that are blind. Okay, perfect. So as we have see, the point is that we have to change our mind. We do not have to think about how we see the world, how we what we need, so the way we are organizing our life, but we have to try to understand the way other people organize their life, what they need fundamentally. Okay, so we can start by trying to understanding what class of advantage user we have to consider. Okay, so first of all, as we have already seen, we have to consider people that can see. People in wheelchair are not interesting for what relates document, website, presentation. So people in wheelchair can open a document or a web page in the same way that we can. So it's not a problem. The problem is when people cannot see, when people can use the keyboard, for example, because they can move their hand, but also because, for example, I'm cooking and I ask to Alexa to give instruction about a recipe, but I'm cooking, so my hand are I'm using my hand to bring ingredient and so on. So I can use my hand to keyboard on a keyboard, to key on a keyboard. So in this case, I use vocal command to dialogue with Alexa, for example. Okay, so it's not something related always to disability, but can be also something into a particular situation. Okay, and also these things always go under the problem of accessibility. So if document, presentation, slides, in this case, web page are accessible for people with disability, they will be also accessible for us in every situation we can find. Okay. Another point is that is related to the age of the user, because I can have older that have problems in using the computer, but also to young children, for example, if they cannot read because they are young, I have to use an interface that use icons or images or vocal comments, okay, but not text, okay. And another problem that is present or is often present is the problem to have very old computers, but also too new. In some cases, our operating system, our smartphone, for example, is too new, and the app is taught for an older version of the operating system, and in this case, it doesn't work, for example. Okay. Another problem are related to the language. If, for example, I cannot speak Russian, so I cannot read documents that use this language. But also, if the document is my native language, but I suffer from, for some cognitive impairment, for example, dyslexia, also use of language can be a font of problem, a source of problem. I need to use a very clear language and to speak in an easy way, in some way. Okay. Which are the alternative input or output device that people with disability use? There are a lot of technology that help people with disability. For example, if I cannot use my hand, I can use, this is a mouse, but it is managed by the chin. Okay. This is a sort of stick that is joined to this helmet, and this user is keying in the keyboard using this stick. Okay. This is a braille keyboard. It is a particular braille keyboard that is used by blind user that have a set of pins that come up and down, and people that are totally visually impaired can use this keyboard to read and also read and write the input-output from the computer. Then we can use a vocal command, and these are an eye tracker. So there are a camera that is able to understand where the user is looking at and selecting the letter using this particular device. Okay. What have in common all these devices? They are not so much precise, because if, for example, if I have to move the mouse with the chin instead of with the hand, I'm not so precise. But also when I use the mouse can select each pixel of the screen. If I use my smartphone and I use my finger, the finger is larger than the pointer of the mouse, so I cannot select each pixel. So all devices are less precise than a common mouse. And another point is that they require a lot of time. So usually people with some kind of disability require more time than people that has not any kind of disability. But also some device or some situation can require more time than that. So in particular, for what relate people that are visually impaired, they usually require 30% more time to perform every task with respect to people that can see. Okay. The definition of accessibility by the standard ISO 16071, and say accessibility is the ability of a product, service, environment, or facility by people with the widest range of capability. As you can see, we are speaking about capability, not disability. So we have to focus what the person can do and not on what the person cannot do. He's Bill Gates. I think that all of you know who he is. And another important thing that you have to consider is that he always say, as we look ahead into the next century, leaders will be those who empower the other. So the point is that if you don't want to include people with disability for ethic reasons, you must include the people with disability because you don't know who can help you. For example, here's Adrian Hans. He suffers of amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, and he loses the possibility to move his hands, all the part of the body, unfortunately. But the last part of his life was dedicated to the creation of a software that helped improve accessibility for people that cannot see. We do not have to think about people with this, and he used this keyboard. This is a mouse, sorry, a Morse keyboard that he used with his knee, okay? And using this, his knee, the last part of his body that he was able to move, he was able to create a code that help people that cannot see, improving the accessibility of the document. She is a Saudi person. I would like to show you a video. Okay, I hope. No. Sorry, I can make this on. I have two screens and the video goes in the wrong screen, but we solve the problem. Are you able to? Are you able to listen to the audio?
No.
No. Okay. I have to stop my sharing on the video and doing it again. Okay, now you should. Now?
Yes.
Thank you.
People think that having a disability is a barrier. But that's not the way I see it. You can catch up with friends.
Ready?
You can capture a moment with your family.
One face, small face, focus lock.
And you can start the day bright and early. You can take a trip to somewhere new.
3 miles to the summit.
You can concentrate on every word of a story.
A bird began to sing. Jack opened his eyes.
You can take the long way home. Or edit a film like this one. When technology is designed for everyone, it lets anyone do what they love, including me.
Okay, I showed this video because I think that I don't think that people with disability cannot do a lot of things. I think that we are not able to give them the possibility to do a lot of things. It's a completely different way to thinking at the point. Okay, so I have another question for you. Well, I think that we have already answered to the question, but the point is that not only people with disability benefit from the guideline for accessibility, but everyone has it. For example, if when at the very beginning of the web, a couple of developers create a page zoom. It is a tool of, at that time, Internet Explorer by Microsoft that enlarge the page, focusing on the text. So it does not enlarge everything like but it enlarges only the text. So it enlarges the size of the text and you can read better. And this was implemented for people that have a very low vision, but then it was used a lot of time at the start when there was the first smartphone, because they reproduce the web pages, but in a very little scale. So what happened that you have the whole page, web page, but with very very little of the font, and so you have to enlarge to see it. So the tool that allow us to enlarge the font was Page, that was initially thought for people with very low vision, so with an impairment. Okay. This is a definition of Saint by Tim Berners-Lee, that was the inventor of the web. The power of the web is in its universality, accessed by everyone regardless of disability, is an essential aspect. In fact, when I show you the definition of the accessibility by the ISO standard, I missed to show you note number 1 that was added after a few years, and this one. Although that accessibility it typically addresses users who have a disability, the concept is not limited to disability issues. Okay, in particular, if I'm using Google Glasses, maybe someone who has remembered them, I cannot use my hand because there is not an interface for my hand. I have to give, for example, vocal instruction. Okay, if I use a smartwatch, I cannot. I do not have a big interface, but it's something similar. I can show you another example. Okay, just a moment. I'm now accessing to the Guardian newspaper, and okay. This is how the Guardian present to every users. But if okay, people that suffer of loss of peripheral vision, this problem is called tunnel. As the problem is retina, so you can see only a portion of a website. So in this way, and this is very similar to what happens when you have a very little interface, as for example in smartwatch. So if you design your web page so that it adapts to all the interfaces, also the very few one, people with this kind of problem can access that information. Okay. I want also to show you another problem. Right. For example, this is what happens when you have dyslexia. This is a very low level of dyslexia. If I want to show you what happened to when severity increase, is this point. Okay. Okay. So as you can see, it's very difficult to read because the letters are moving very quickly. Okay. And then also the interface in the are changing continuously. Doing to research. This is a research by the MIT. They show new particular interfaces that are creating using tattoos. And again, if my content is accessible, can be used by all.
I think there is no fashion statement greater than being able to change how your skin looks. So these tattoos enables anyone to create interfaces directly on their skin. The materials we use enable it to be very aesthetic and to reflect this metallic look. There's this emerging popularity in these metallic jewelry temporary tattoos, and they have really enabled the skin to be put in the spotlight again as a surface for decoration. We draw a lot from the usability and also the aesthetics of metallic temporary tattoos into the design of our on-skin interfaces. So this process is enabled by gold leaf. Gold leaf has been traditionally used for the frames of paintings, or they have been put in vodka or even on chocolates. So we're able to create 3 classes of devices. The first class is input devices to turn your skin into a trackpad or controller to adjust your music player. The second class is output displays. For example, a rose on your skin that would change color based on your body temperature, or a fire that would light up to show your emotion. The third class is communication devices, such as NFC tags, so you can read data directly off your skin. We can even enhance the aesthetics of existing metallic temporary tattoos by embedding LEDs. Where I come from in Taiwan, there's this huge culture of cosmetics and street fashion. And they're highly accessible and very cheap, so you can very easily change and edit your appearance whenever you want. It's just such an integrated part of our lives. This is something that we purposely wanted to make accessible to anyone. You could just use any.
Okay, I think we can stop here. The point is that if you design, if you design, for example, think about this tattoo can be used as a trackpad or as a mouse, also to read some information. In Italy, we have Green Pass. Every time we want to enter into a restaurant or cinema or almost every building, you have to show your Green Pass. Think about showing a tattoo that contains information about Green Pass, for example. Or I'm very interested in using a tattoo like this one to move, to switch on to move the slide of this presentation, for example. So what I want to show you, or for example, something like this that is a color according to in the video they say to the emotion of the person. I think that I would like to have something like that for people with diabetes that can change according to the value of, for example, insulin, and I can know that I have to take my pills and so on. So the point is that if you design for one, it does not mean only to design for people with dyslexia, for that are blind, for people with disability, but something to design for the future, because it means that your interface is ready to be put everywhere. So also in device like this, in tattoo, okay, or in bracelet or whatever the future will bring us. Okay. And this is another important point, that there is a big user that is very important in the web, maybe the most important user, that is Google. Google is the blind, because it has a lot of money and it brings a lot of money to your website, because when the user keying a search question Google, and Google answer giving a list of website, it's something like there is a person outside your shop that the people inside the shop. So it's very important. Google cannot see. Google is a bot, have not eyes. Okay, so if Google can understand your structure, your document, it is mean that everyone can understand your document, okay? So it's really, really important also for economic impact of your website. Accessible websites are better trusted and indexed by Google, and this is very important. Another important point is the law. If you don't want to be compliant with the accessibility rule for ethic reason, you must be compliant because law imposed to you to be compliant. I do not know all the legislation of the country, but for example, in Europe, the accessibility adjustment for accessibility adjustment, it is used the accessibility guidance by WTC, and these are used the legal basis for all the country in Europe. In Italy, we have the Stanca law that was defined on 2008, and it was redefined on 2008, and before COVID, so in 2019, we have a revision of the, I can say, there was a fine penalty when these law are not applied. Stanca law oblige the public administration to have accessible site that must be understood and navigate by all users. But in Europe, it is quite the same, because also the Stanca law is based on the guidelines by WTC. That was the guidance that I will give you today. And also in US, section 508 give instruction very similar to the WTC guidelines. It was defined on June 2001. And even in this case, it obliged the federal agency, so public administration, to have accessible information also for people with disability. But what is very important to understand, accessibility seldom requires specific action or specific rule only for accessibility. But in most cases, it is only sufficient to follow the good design rule, okay? And so there are very few to add, but what is really important is that you follow the good design rules and also accessibility rules from the beginning of the design of a website or of a document. As for example, think about a website. When you decide to use the color, using the color are decided on the basis of the color used by the company that is providing this website. If you use color that are not a good contrast, okay, for a background and text, if you think about accessibility, so the contrast when you decide the color, you are not using so much time more. You simply have to take the right decision. But at the end of the process, when you have your website developed with the color decided and so on, you simply check the content of the color and you find that the content is not okay. You have to redesign completely the website, and this can take time and a lot of money. So what is important is to think about accessibility from the very beginning of your process. I cited the guidelines from W3C. W3C is a consortium of companies that work on technology or technology about networks and university. Inside the W3C, there is the working group, who stand for Web Accessibility Initiative. It is the most important initiative about accessibility, and its aim is making the web more accessible to everyone. What this group provides, it defines the guidelines that is the one that we will discuss in the next slide for accessibility websites. It guarantees that the technology promoted by W3C support accessibility. So if you use the language technology that was created inside W3C, you have a good chance to create accessible document and web content, and then promotes research and training on this topic. On the link this link, you can read the guidelines. They are intended for developers, so they are a bit difficult for people that are not used to are not familiar with web technologies. The first version of WCAG guidelines was defined on 1998. The second version that is more interesting was published on December 2008. Then it was a little bit modified in the version 2.1 on June 2018, and we are expecting to have published the version 2.2 on June of the next year. Guidelines define rules in checkpoint. Each checkpoint has a level of priority that is based on the importance of the barriers that we are removing with that checkpoint. So the checkpoint that have priority 1 means that the developer must be compliant with this checkpoint, otherwise one or more category of user will not be able to access to this information. It is a basic requirement. Let me give you an example using the architectural building, a building. Okay, consider that you have a building with a small stair that you have to do for entering the building. It is sufficient to have 3 or 4 step stairs. This means that people in a wheelchair cannot access to the building, okay, because they cannot go into the stair. Also, if it is a very short stair, only 4 stairs, okay. So it is a basic requirement. If you don't remove this barrier, people cannot enter, okay. Priority level 2 is a little more easier. Developer should, not must be, should be compliant with this checkpoint. Otherwise, 1 or more categories of user could find difficulties, to access to the information, okay? We have that building with the stair, and we put a ramp with the steep ascent. So people can enter into the room, into the building, but maybe he need the help of a lot of people to push him to the building. Okay, so now the information is accessible, but I need a lot of effort to access to that information. If we remove also the checkpoint priority 3, in this case, I'm improving the access to the content. So priority number 1 is a basic requirement. Priority number 2 is removing significant barriers. Priority of 3, level 3, it improves the access to the content. In this case, I have a veto, okay? So I can enter, and I don't need to spend a lot of effort to enter to the building. And the definition is can take this checkpoint into consideration. Otherwise, 1 or more categories of users will be somehow impeded in accessing the information. So I have to remove priority of level 1, otherwise I cannot access to that information. It is better if I remove priority number of level 2, because these checkpoints describe barriers that require a lot of effort. If I'm compliant with the checkpoint of level 1 and 2, I'm accessible, okay? Usually law require these 2. And the third is more about usability than accessibility. I'm improving the access, I'm removing problem, but people can access to the content. When we are compliant with all the checkpoints of priority level 1, they say that the website or the document has a level of compliance A. When the document is compliant with all the checkpoints of priority level 1 and 2, we say that the document has a level of compliance double A and triple A when the document or the website, the presentation, is compliant with all the checkpoints of priority number 1, 2, and 3. So this is how guidelines are organized. Then now let me show you what the guidelines require. We say that a website. This guidelines are in particular regarding websites, but they speak about content. So it contains a lot of issues that can be used to produce PDF, presentation, and other document, static document. It says that a website is accessible when it is for. Four means that it respects the four principles of the guideline, that is perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. Perceivable means that the user can perceive this information. So the information are usually provided using different sensorial channels. So it does not need, it's not need that a user, for example, can see or that a user can hear. So if I use an image, I have to put an alternative test. If I put a video or a audio in my website, I need to add the caption for people that cannot hear. Operal means that the user can navigate the interface. So this means that, for example, when I put scrolling test or the carousel, think about the carousel. There are a lot of carousel in the web. Carousel are usually image and text that are shown once and then they scroll. So you see on each time only one images, but these images plus text change during the time. Consider people with dyslexia. Them letter are changing. If we also change all the document, a portion of the document, the confusion increase. So they need to stop the carousel, focusing on the first slide of the carousel, and then move to the second slide of the carousel when they are ready for that. Okay. So be operable means that the user can stop, restart, rewind, forward, all the object elements that have we say their own life on the screen, so that they do something on the screen. We need to adapt the piece of the playing back to the user. Okay. Understandable means that information must be understandable for the user and designed on a clear text, easy language, an easy use of the language, and we will see in the next slide. Robust means that the content and interface must be, the content must be interpreted also by people that use assistive technology. It just say that it must work. So I cannot click on a link and it is a broken link, because this means the user feels disoriented, or I cannot click on a button and this work doesn't work. It's for people that do not have any kind of disability, but also for people that have disability means that I can click on that button, even if I use, for example, a screen reader, which is a tool that reads the screen for people that cannot see. These guidelines are based on two actions. Use different sensory channels. So provide, for example, text description for the images, caption for the video and audio clip, audio description for the video, because we do not need only the caption for video, because the caption usually report what people are saying. Okay, but blind people are people that can't hear, can see. So you need the audio description that describe what is happening in that video. Think about some movies when you have very quickly action, for example, I don't know, in a fight. Okay, you hear only rumors, noises, and you need an audio description that describe to you these two characters are fighting or something like that. Okay. The best accessible media is text, because text can be read by people that can see, but can be also read by a screen reader, so it can be here, but people that can see. Okay. But this not mean that you have only to use text, because also images are very useful, and we can see in the next slide. And then we have to create understandable and navigable content on one page. And this is very important because we have to use a clear and simple language for people that have a cognitive impairment. If again, if your structure is clear and well explained, for example, in this case, it's very important to use headings and to not have a flat structure in which you have a first heading and then all flat text. This does not work well for people with cognitive impairment and people with disability, or people that are not able to focus for a long interval of time on text. But you have to prefer to use a clear text and to present by item and list, for example, because it is more catching for the user. Also, people without disability, we are a very busy user in which we do not read a web page from the beginning to the end. We usually surf the web and look at a very important keyword. This is why I use the red dark to highlight this word, because I want that you focus on that word. We need to use the same strategy for our content, because people with cognitive impairment and dyslexia are not able to read all the text. Their effort in reading is so strong that they perform reading, so they are able to produce the sound of the reading. But at the end of the reading, they are not understand what they have read, because the effort for read is too high. Okay. So it's important to have an exposition by point and using keyword, highlighting the important keywords by the emph, so the italic or bold for the strong emphasis. Okay, so now I show you what are the guidelines about accessibility, and that we can see a set of hints what is better to do and what we don't have to do if we want to help people with disability. For example, for what regard the test, we have to use clear and simple language. To improve readability, we need to present a point by list item, okay? And also line spacing is very important, even for people with dyslexia and people with cognitive impairment. Usually, we need a height of the line spacing that is 1.5 the size of the text. So if the text is for example, 16 points, we need 1.5 to 16 points, so 24 points, okay? Then I think that it's more complicated for you to read this line, and this line, instead of the third and the fifth line, okay? Because scrolling or blanking text must be avoided. It's a problem for people with dyslexia. And also to elaborate their complex font. People from the communication sector, Martin, sometimes can tell you that using a handwritten font allow you to have a more involved, emotionally involved relation with your reader, okay? Because handwriting seems to simulate the idea that I'm doing something special for you. Where we all use the computer, I'm writing with my hand my message for you. But if it's true that it gives more involvement from an emotional point of view, it's also true that it's very difficult to read. So it's a problem for people with dyslexia or cognitive impairment. Also, underlined text must be used only for the anchor of a link. If you in the web, people are used to recognize underlined text as a link. If I use the underline to emphasize a piece of text, this is an error. Straight-through text, again, is something that I have to avoid because it's very difficult to read. We can use these only if it's strictly necessary, for example, to show something that has changed. So I show you the old version of the text straight-through and then the new version without the straight-through. Another important thing is to pay attention to the size and the use of color. Okay, as bigger as your font is, as it's less important the contrast. If your font is too small, you need a bigger contrast. Otherwise, people with dyslexia or people that are blind to color are not able to read. This is an example. It is in Italian, sorry, but it's not important to understand the meaning. The meaning is click here. But the point is that I'm sure that every one of you find difficulty in understanding the letter here. It is click qui, C-L-I-C-C-A-Q-U-I. In English is a click here. This is clearly a font, a bad choice of a font that is a capitalized letter of an handwritten font. Okay, so it's very important the font that you choose. Link. It is link are the measure way that user interact with web pages. So it's really important that the user is able to recognize the link are, which are the link, and that the user is able to understand when the link will bring him. So it's really important to have an anchor test that is that can tell you what you are going. So don't use click here or continue, because this way of using this anchor link that doesn't give any information, but information are provided by the context, so by other text that are near to that link. The problem is that using screen reader, everything goes in sequence, and the screen reader also gives the possibility to have the list of links completely in a completely way different from their content. So they are extracted from the content, and you can read the list when there are only the anchor. Think about the newspaper when you have the summary, the article, and then you can have a link to go to the full text of the article. If the link is click here or continue, you have people with visually impaired through the screen view. We have a list of all links that are click here, click here, click here, click here, and I don't know how to choose one of these click here. Okay. Another point is that I have to recognize the link. So, for example, in this case, these are links since they are underlined. This is a link, so since they are underlined. This is also a link, but how you can say in this old version of Amazon, the links are created in a lot of different ways. These are blue with underline. These are dark black without underline. These are blue with an underline. And I'm not able to understand which this link has already been visited and which are not visited. And this is information which is very important for understanding what I have already visited and what no, and so to orient myself. So I'm able to understand if I'm able to understand where I want to go, because I come back into a website for or if I can want to visit some things that I have already visited, or I want to visit something that I have not already visited, but I know that there is, because in my previous visit I see the link. Okay, so I need the information about what I've already visited and what I'm not. I don't know. Okay, images have different rules. Images can be of a simple presentation, so of layout. In this case, I do not need to do anything more. Or images can have an informative context. If it has an informative context, I need to provide this information using text. For those of you that are familiar with HTML, we use the alt attribute. That is a way to put an informative content in text for image. But also, for example, I create this presentation using PowerPoint, and you can add in text to the image put into PowerPoint. Logos are a particular kind of images, because, for example, if there is a logo that for a company that nobody knows, it's not important to describe the logo, okay? But if the logo is very important, for example, if I speak about the company of the beaten apple, you know which is the company? I know that you cannot use your Microsoft, but maybe you can use the chat. company of the beetle apple is Apple. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, but if I'm a blind user and nobody has never explained to me that the logo of Apple is a beaten apple, I can't understand what you are speaking about. So if a logo is is known, and sometimes it is used as a metaphor for the company, you need to describe the logo. If the logo is not so known for people, so you can also avoid to describe, because as I have said at the beginning, blind people require more or less 30% more time with respect to people without disability. So we do not need to give them a lot of text that require much more time for them. I can show you an example of what I'm saying. This is the weather forecast by Arqus, that is our local forecast provider. Okay. In this table, we can see the weather condition of Padua in this week. Okay. Look at the text. Okay. On Tuesday, it was light rainfall. On Friday, today, it's not going to rain. Okay. But it's different from Saturday, where it's not going to rain, but in Saturday it will be sunny. It's sunny, okay? While on Friday it's cloudy. Okay, so information are provided by images. So people with that cannot see have not the information, and for them Friday can be the same and have the same weather of Saturday. Okay, but fortunately Arqus made the site well, so I can show you. In this case, it's sometimes in Italian, sometimes in English, I'm sorry. But on Friday, it's cloudy. On Sunday, it's clear, it's sunny. Okay. So if I provide even this information about the text information, this information will be available also for blind user. Why I'm showing you this? Because even if you are not supposed to create a web page, sometimes you are supposed to give instruction to create web page. And so it's important that when you say, okay, use this picture, you also have to give the instruction on how give the same message that the image is providing also to people that can see the image. Okay. But do not use only text, because if text is perfect for people that are visually impaired, this is not so safe for people that cognitive impairment, because an infographic can be of greater help for people with dyslexia or cognitive impairment. Image allow to capture user attention with better results, and also the image can help to memorize the content. Okay, so don't use only text. We do not want to have document and web page flat with only text, because they are going to become very boring. So use the image. If the image are only of decoration, for example, I can put a Christmas tree on this slide since we are in December. Okay, this Christmas tree does not put on you, give on you any information. But if I put some image that information, I have to provide an audio description or a text description. Okay, when to use text description or audio description? Or if the information is very simple, text description is enough. But considering that instead of having this infographic, I have Gioconda by Leonardo. I cannot put, it's a completely different experience if I give you an audio description that try to give you the impression, the emotion related to Gioconda, so that I can give you all information about his history, about the Leonardo and so on. So in this case, also an audio description can be a good idea. Consider that when you put text, then the text is read by a screen reader. The experience is more or less one you experience when you go into the train station and listen to the arrival of the train and to the table of the train. Okay. While if you put an audio description, you can have a more interesting reading by a person, not by a computer. Okay, another example, another point that is very, that require a lot of attention at table. Tables are needed to display data, for example, in the scientific experiments, but is a big problem for people that cannot see, because it has two dimensions. So totally visually impaired users have difficulty manages this kind of data, since they relied on the row column association that are easily seen by the sites, but are not so easy to describe, relying only on hidden. Which are the hints? It's very important to keep the structure of the table very simple. We will see some example in the next few slides, okay? And also is really, really important to add before the table a brief description of the content of the table. So the user that can see can decide if the effort to read the table, or if the table does not contain any information that is interesting for him. Add either to cell, and pay attention to make the association either cell. Okay. This is not an error. I put this dark triangle over the table because I want to experience what happened to the people that are blind. So in this moment, we are completely blind, okay? And I am the screen reader that will read for you. You are quite lucky because I'm a person, so I will put some effort in reading well, but I read very quickly because I want to be quite similar to a screen reader, okay? I choose to spend my money, purchase, location, date, evaluation, cost, euro. Hairdresser, September 12, great idea 30. Lasagna restaurant, September 12, regrets 18. Shoes, shoe shop, September 13, big regrets 65. Toothpaste supermarket, September 13, good 5. Sum 118. Okay, was this user or people who write this table, this user, do he or she like lasagna about eat at the restaurant? I know that the table is not visible. This is the exercise in nature. Okay, the point is that you cannot answer to my question. Okay, my question is, I read the table for you like a screen reader will read the table to a blind people, okay? And so if I ask you if the author of this table like the lasagna, I think that none of you is able to answer to my question. But now all of you is able to answer to my question. The author did not like lasagna because the evaluation is regrets, okay? Why are you not able to? Because reading the table in sequence, we are completely losing the association between either and cell. So this cell regrets as this text evaluation as either column, okay? But also this text lasagna as evaluation of either of the row. So if I read the table with the either, this time I will read purchase lasagna, location lasagna restaurant, date lasagna September 12, evaluation lasagna regrets. Okay, now it's more probable that it remains in your minds the point that lasagna was regrets for the author. Okay, so it's really important to associate to the either's, to column and to row, okay? Because then the screen reader will be able to do the association, okay? A more complex example. That table was well organized and structured because I have two, I can say, entry point. I have both the either for the column and the either for the row. Okay? But now things are different. Are you ready? This table has 7 rows and 6 columns. When I say empty, the screen reader will say empty. Empty Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Friday. literature, empty, 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 empty. 8.00, 1A, 1S, empty, empty, 3D, empty. 9.00, empty, 2F, empty, empty, 1A. Geography, empty, 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 empty. 8.00, empty, 4C. This will be in the exam. Okay, 6D, empty, empty, 9.00, 2F, 0, 0, 1A, 0. Okay? Is there someone that will try to guess what is the table speaking about? I don't see. I know you don't see the table. You are blind this moment. No way. Exactly. We are not used. The situation is a little more, is a little better for people that are blind because they are used to memorize all information in the timetable. Yes. Now that we are not blind anymore, we can see that it is a timetable of a class, a class schedule. Okay. This is not of a class of a professor. This professor will taught the literature on Monday at class first S, and then Tuesday and at the 8 at class 3D and so on. Okay. When the table are with a lot of empty cells, the situation is worse for the blind people because too much empty point does not allow to understand what is happening, essentially. Okay, but there is also another point that is another error which is very important. If I look at this cell first S, there either, so the information we need to understand that cell is Monday, and it is in either of the column, so it's okay. 8 o'clock, and it is the either of, oh, it's okay. But the topic, literature, is not an either. So it cannot be linked to that cell. It's very difficult. So we have to change this table in this way. Okay. Now, first as this either of the column, Monday, this either of the reader of the row, 8 o'clock. But also the topic can be linked, associated to that cell. So now the screen reader will read Monday literature 8 o'clock 1S first S. Okay. So we need to have in mind that we can always think we can see, because if we can see also this table is okay, but this is even better. So even in this case, accessibility rules all people with disability, but that also people that does not have any disability, because it's more clear this table. Okay, and this table is for people with dyslexia, for people that cannot see, and for all other users. Last thing I want to show you, the use of color. It's for a lot of people that can see color, but also usually men, women usually are able to see color, but also the contrast have an impact on people with cognitive impairment, in particular dyslexia, or with people that are not totally visually impaired, but partially visually impaired. So they can see, but very large test, okay? But that large test can be seen or not according to the contrast with the background is high, okay? So what you have to look into, this is one of the points that if you think about when you, I'm just finishing, when you create the website, you have only to take the correct decision, but the time it needs is quite the same. But if you become aware of the problem at the end of the design process, you have a great problem, okay? So you need to use, do not convey information only through color, in the web page nowadays, very often the link are emphasized only with color because it is a text that changes the color. It's not correct because if I cannot see the color, I cannot recognize the link. So it's important that we use also the underlined, okay? Or avoid reference to color and instruction. Click on the yellow button and I cannot see yellow, so I don't know which is the yellow button, okay? You can find this information in the box. Again, this is not correct. And another thing, to beware of live harmonious color scheme. Harmonious color scheme are often liked by the user, but it creates a lot of problem user that have problem in their sites. Usually we need 4.5 to 1 or 3 to 1 for large text. Okay, I'm just finishing. I only want to show you some example of color. This is how the world look like for people that have any problem with color. And this is how it changes when change the color. Okay. Again, if you read the tree, you have not problem with color. This is how people that are blind to colors display. Okay, I just finished. Only one more question. Okay. No, questo? No. I'm sorry, something. Okay, I can give you. So I want that you think about two things, two situations. The first one in which you no, sorry, something goes wrong. It's not a problem. Okay, I wanted you to think about the two situations. The first one in which you arrive at your hotel and you find an hostess that is ready for helping you. The second one in which you arrive at the hotel and you find a sign in the welcome desk that saying ring at the bottom and someone will arrive to help you. And when you ring the bell, okay, an hostess arrive and help you. Which of the two situations do you prefer? The first one, the hostess is already there, or the second one, you have to ring a bell to call the hostess that can help you. First one, okay. Lucia say that I prefer the situation in which also Barbara, okay. Do we all agree that we prefer the situation in which the hostess is already there? I think. Okay, so the point is we must be ready. We must be ready for everyone, not only for people without disability. It often happens that in our work, for example, I think about my class that I teach web technology, okay? I do not have people impaired, impaired student in my classroom, and sometimes I listen to my colleague that say, okay, we do not have impaired user. When we will have it, we will try to understand accessibility issue. It's not correct. We be ready for everyone. It's not correct that a student that has impairment or people with disability have to ring a bell to ask help. Everything should be ready also for them. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ombretta. Do you want me to switch on cameras and microphones so the people can make questions or something, or do you prefer to keep on going with the chat?
No, I think that as you prefer.
No, it's technically possible, the two possibilities, so as you prefer.
I think you should switch on also give the possibility to switch on the microphones for people that want to ask questions. and then we can leave them the possibility to choose if they want to switch on the camera or not.
Now it is done, so the people can switch on the microphones and make questions.
Okay, is there any question from me? Very interesting to leave now. Okay.
I have also to say that we have put the link for the people to register their attendance, because it's very important for us to create this internal network of people who is interested in the topics, because this is the first activity that we are going to have in the topic in the next future. So please, if you can fill in the form, it would be.
We have Verizon Anders. Fernando Galan have a question.
Yeah, thank you very much. I will break the ice if nobody else. It's feeling embarrassed at the moment. Yeah, thank you very much, Ombretta. I think it was a wonderful presentation, and it's a topic that is very close to my heart. I was trying to work on this issue already in my previous life, I will say. And I am very much aware of how important it is actually to make it to make everything accessible, in order also for allowing people not only to benefit of the different activities we are doing, but also to participate in the construction of Arqus. So it's not just as a target group; it's also as co-creators of what we are trying to do. So my question in that sense first will be like, from your point of view, what do you think are the biggest challenges at the moment for Arqus? What we should pay attention now in order, as you said, not to have problems in the future, but really to pay attention since the very beginning, because I think that this is quite important. And I think you mentioned also, my second comment, I think you mentioned also to some extent, accessibility is not only a matter of graphic design or fonts and so on, it's also an attitude. And how also we behave to other colleagues which might have any kind of impediment for either physical or that is even not visible sometimes. I'm thinking also about mental health issues sometimes, and how we can also be more inclusive of those aspects.
Okay, thank you for your question. Completely agree with your comments. I think that there are 2 points that are more important in my opinion. The first one is to, as I've already said, you notice and you see in your comments, to think accessibility from the first moment. Because of the point, I mean, in Italy, but I think that the problem is all over the world. Many people think to accessibility to a sort of luggage, very heavy luggage you have to you because you are obliged by law, and it being something that there are a lot of things to do, so I don't want to know what I have to do, but there's a lot of things to do. I have a lot of work to do, and this work that I will do will make my website because I cannot use this, or I cannot use this, I can use a cursor, and not so. The first thing that we have to begin to accessibility from the very beginning, and change our mind, understanding that we can use what we want. We simply have to provide an alternative. I'm not saying that we do not have to use image. Absolutely no. We have to use image. We have to use image with the correct contrast. Okay, and then we have to put an alternative text. This is what the vision of accessibility is, not to remove opportunity for people that does not have any impairment, is to add opportunity for everyone. Even if, because if your site, when I sometimes work with some company, and they ask me, because they have to provide to create websites for a public administration, so they be compliant with law. Okay, and they tell me, but may I use this? Yeah, you should, you can, but you simply have to ask yourself if that particular tool that you want to use is okay with the accessibility rule. And what happens is that when they finish their work on accessibility. So they are only focusing on accessibility in a website that was already prepared before without into accessibility. What happened is that their position in the ranking of Google is put, the website is up of many positions. So they create a website thinking to Google, to ranking, to indexing, to economic impact, and so on. Then they are obliged to be compliant with the accessibility, and they think they are only something for people that have some impairments. I don't know, want to know it. And then they turn back to the web tools that allow to control the position on the search page and the SERP. And if I, I work for people with impairment, I ever turn back in position of Google. Why? Because Google is blind, for example. So this is the point, is to convince people. My mission today is convince everyone I know that if you must use accessibility guidelines, because it's better for you, not for people with impairment. Okay. And the second point is, if you want to do something for it's something like my mom say it's better for you. And when I was a child, I think it's not better for you. You don't know what is better for me. Okay. For example, put your jacket, your skirt, your glove. It's better for you. No, glove are not on fashion. Okay. It's the same. You cannot say it's better for you impaired user if you don't understand what the impaired user need. So we need to involve them. Okay, we need to try to simulate what is their vision, the world, what they experience. If you not understand what they experience, you cannot do anything, because the risk is you work a lot, but you don't reach anything. Okay, I hope I answer your question. I don't look at the chat when I was speaking, so I don't know if there are any questions in the chat.
Not really. We have taken notes of all the questions, and there weren't any. It was pretty much myself, like trying to get some answers and so on. Just like that, at the very beginning, we had Francisca, sorry, coming from Leipzig, saying that she has some knowledge on the use of technology for people with some kind of disability. So I said, okay, we are going to take note of your contact there in Leipzig, because we are moving on from now and then creating some kind of group of people with experience. We are not going to say expertise. We have the expertise. They're here. Look at the web, but we need the people with the experience in each one of the members of Arqus in order to move on, just like that. But not we didn't have any question like that. So two possibilities. People is quite shocked, as I am, and now processing all the amount of information and concerns that you provided. But of course, we don't have any more question.
Well, there's a question on contrast ratio. I can answer. So this is a ratio that can be measured by a specific tool. Okay, and if the contrast ratio 4:5 is a contrastation that is okay for even for normal size of the font. But if the font is larger, you can use a lower contrast ratio, so also 3:1. Maybe I don't know if I have a tool for this, but let me check. Maybe I can show you something like this. This is a tool that shows that this is the Guardian. Okay, it has a high contrast. In fact, what happened is that if I use this. This is the worst case in color blindness. So as you can see, everything now is white, gray, or black. Okay, but even this case, as you can see, everything is I can read everything. There is nothing that I cannot recognize. Okay, the color has changed, obviously, but I always can read everything. If now I found, I search for a website, let me, Amazon, let me try, okay. Maybe here we can try to see, okay, option minus. Okay, in this case, no, in this case, but so for example, you can see in this case, this decoration, we can recognize the end of this with the background. Do you see that? Okay, I can see now, but now it's very difficult to understand when the decoration ended and when began the background. Okay. This add-on is silk tied. Okay. I write on the left so you can see silk tied. Okay. No, it's not properly. It's an add-on of Chrome that can be downloaded and used. It's free. Okay. So this is what happens when you use a contrast that's low. Okay. It's very interesting because you can try a lot of things. For example, this is also a simulator of a screen reader. Yeah.
Passa al contenuto principale.
It's in Italian, sorry.
Amazon.it, link.
But this is a way screen reader read. It's not a voice that is telling you something. It's very computerized voice, very official voice. Okay.
Robotical. Yeah.
Robotical. Thank you. Okay. Other thing. Dyslexia is very interesting because if you don't see once in your life, in my opinion, you can understand what dyslexia is. That's very difficult to read everything. Okay. Any other question?
Thank you so much, Ombretta. And what I would like to say is that we already had the idea of sharing some material in the Arqus community after this meeting. So when you can, apart from the PowerPoint presentation, but we are planning to have this kind of small vademecum to give to really to spread around our task forces so that everyone can be able to anyway make the maximum, take the maximum attention to these points. And one thing which I found very interesting was that just by chance, I was reading something else, but I bumped into a very interesting material produced by the Erasmus Student Network, which among us, Nacho, Ombretta, myself have already shared, and we are going to share it with the whole alliance possibly. And if you want, I can show it to you. If you, I don't know if I can interrupt your view to show.
Yes, sure.
Okay. I'll do this. Okay. It is called Inclusive Communication Manual, and it is online. You can't download it, but you can read through it. Allow. And it's very, very brief, very useful, very informative at the same time. It contains like an introduction, which is a broader introduction about inclusive language, inclusive communication, defining inclusion, identity, diversity, and so on and so forth. There's a part dedicated, in fact, to communication. But then there's a following part very useful, dedicated to accessibility, and in a very kind of simple way for any kind of user and reader. Some very useful instructions are given already, and not only instructions, but there are links to websites and resources online which can go deeper into details about the topics which are here published. And this is very useful, I think, as a starting point, a starting point. Like, I mean, today we went much more into depth because we had Ombretta with us. And I hope that in the future we can deepen our knowledge on the topic. But anyway, if we start with this few materials and documents which are easy and quick to be read and to be understood, I think we can have a good platform to start from, to build accessible, to create accessible materials for any purposes. Web, of course, communication purposes, but also for learning, teaching, and also knowledge sharing, which is something that we have to do all the time in our alliance.